Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today on a very ancient site in Turkey, and it kind of goes along with other sites in Turkey I've talked about that are extremely ancient, one of the most ancient parts of the world. Before I start talking about it, I'm going to be making a video a little later today or tomorrow where I answer questions. So if you have a question that you want answered, tack it on to the comment section of this video. But today's subject is a place called Nevali Cori, and it is in Turkey. And a dam was built about a quarter of a century ago, and unfortunately created this large reservoir on the Euphrates, and it covered up the over 10,000-year-old site of Nevali Cori. But this is the general area where it was located. And Klaus Schmidt of the German Archaeological Institute worked on this site, I think it was about 25 years ago, and he really got familiarized with how people were erecting temples and other things at this time. And if he would have never worked at Nevali Cori, he probably wouldn't have recognized the significance at Gobekli Tepe, which is right here, not too far away. And this was a very active part of the world about 10,000 years ago. We had Karahan Tepe right here, ancient Haran, ancient present-day Sanliurfa, Gobekli Tepe right next door, Nevali Cori, excuse me, I think that's how it is pronounced. But this is a fascinating site, and whenever you have a site that's over 10,000 years old, and you got buildings and stuff there, I need to make a video about this. Today's the day. Now here is what Nevali Cori looked like before the waters covered up this area. And here is a temple, I guess is how they describe this. But there was many types of buildings found around here, and I'm just going to show you a few of them. But these pillars here, originally, they were kind of the T-shaped pillars that you find at Gobekli Tepe. And people have theorized that once little smaller places like this of worship were created away from Gobekli Tepe, the need for Gobekli Tepe and the pilgrimage that was probably taking place to that hillside was not so necessary, and maybe that's why Gobekli Tepe was phased out, because local areas were erecting these similar temples, and there seemed to be some astronomical alignments in here. Now I will leave a few links below. Of course, it says the arrangement of the Nevali Cori cult building is based on similar symbolic systems and numbers, as we assume, related to the calendar and the circuit of the sun and the moon. The sculptures found in this complex also indicate similarity to those excavated at Gobekli Tepe, enclosure D. The symbolic significance of the numbers 12, the months, and 13 expressed in the interior of the temple is unquestionable. And here they had 12 pillars on the outside of this temple, and I'll show you a artist's rendition of that in just a second here. It says the settlement dates back to 8620 BC, or over 10,600 years ago. It says it was occupied during the early Neolithic period, during pre-pottery B and A period, with the latest dates coming in at 7,500 BC. Here is a look at those pillars, those familiar T-shaped pillars. And these were kind of representation of humans, with the top here, the top of the T being the head. And here is an artist's reconstruction of what this temple will look like back in the day. The 12 pillars around the outside, 2 in the middle. And these pillars look like the pillars at Gobekli Tepe, almost exactly. And it goes on to talk about other dwellings here. It says, dwellings excavated at Nevali Cori dated to 7700 BC took the shape of long rectangular houses with a living space in front and a rectangular storage area behind, and they can be considered the archetype of the Anatolian farmhouse that can still be found today. Now here are the structures at Nevali Cori and how they are lined up in regards to due north. So some of these were just houses, some of these were temples, and this one here seems the corners of this are lined up to the cardinal points. That's what it seems to me, this temple, but these are houses and other structures here found. Now here's a website I found, tragiccocomedia.com, tragedy and comedy with a dash of cocoa, and I enjoyed this article. I'm glad to share it here, but they talk about Gobekli Tepe, and then they transition into Nevali Cori. But here are some of the pillar work at Gobekli Tepe, a little map, a fertile crescent. In this area of Gobekli Tepe and Nevali Cori and Sogmatar and all these other famous places, or very ancient places, Sanlurfa, Karahan Tepe, all lie between the headwaters of these two rivers, and certain text refers to that area as the birth of civilization. You can't ignore that. But here they show a pic of what was found at Nevali Cori, these rectangular houses. And if I was to find this on Google Earth today, I would kind of ignore it. I'd say these are totally modern buildings, but these go back 10,000 years. Let me just read a little bit here. It says, lying roughly 30 kilometers north of Gobekli Tepe and now submerged beneath the dammed waters of the Euphrates River is the site of Nevali Cori, a Neolithic village, the earliest radiocarbon date for which, somewhat speculatory, is the middle of the 10th millennium BC. More definite dates place Layer 2, its second construction phase, in the second half of the 9th millennium BC, more than 1,000 years after the earliest known construction phases at Gobekli Tepe. But I thought that is a pretty fascinating pic of what they were building 10,000 years ago. Houses, seems to be farmhouses, storage areas. They were hunters. They were growing wheat. Sounds pretty familiar. And here again is an artist rendition of what Nevali Cori may have looked like in its original phase, with the columns here. Now here's another website I will leave the link to, but it goes over some of the artwork and the little sculptures that were found at Nevali Cori and some nearby ancient places. I think this is fascinating, and I will leave the link to this below also. And these carvings at Nevali Cori are a little spooky, but they're pretty cool. Here is one. They are doing maybe the Nevali Cori happy dance, maybe. And here is one that is really creepy. This is pretty much a lifelike human skull that was found here. Not a real human skull, but a carved one out of rock, with the serpent emblazoned on the back of his head. And what does this truly mean? That's up for anybody's guess. But if they did document a common strike at Gobekli Tepe, maybe this is the way the people at Nevali Cori were just symbolizing that this comet strike was really in the back of our mind all along since this event happened. That's just my guess. And here is one more carving found at Nevali Cori. Bas relief, where they removed stone away from these objects to create them, like the Sphinx was created down in Giza. But these bas relief carvings are not easy to do. But not a lot of time for YouTube today, but I thought I would make this video. It's one I've wanted to make for a while. And please check out Megalithomania's UK's video on Nevali Cori. And they go over a little trip to a museum and other artifacts that were found here. And Andrew Collins and Hugh Newman do a great job on this video, like all their videos. So I will leave a link to their visit to Nevali Cori. But I thought I would talk about this today. This is an over 10,000-year-old site in a place of the world that seems people were thriving 10,000 years ago, building settlements and temples. Hope you thought this was interesting, and you all have a very nice day.